the grist mill, which is not open right now, but it does have a working grist mill in here that they do make flour and cornmeal out of it.
Ain't this interesting? There's a small plow. My dad had one like that, and there's a larger plow blade. And this is real interesting. Almost looks like it's made out of railroad ties and railroad spikes. It may very well be, but that looks to be a homemade aerator. What they would do is, after they plow it, they'd take that and drag it along behind the horse to break up the dirt that they just plowed, make it easier to plant seeds. And that right there is an old antique cedar. You go along and that chain would measure out and it would dump seed into the ground. Let's see if we can get around here and get a good look at what it says on it here. See, the seed would come out of there, go down into there, and then drop to the ground. It says Superior, manufactured by American Seeding Machine Company, Superior Division, Springfield, Ohio, USA. Man, that's an old one. I wonder how old that thing is.
We are walking around the Breaks Interstate Park Visitor Center, and we are walking down here to the moonshine still. Making a run of moonshine. In a run, 1 bushel of corn will produce 3/4 to 1 1/2 gallons. If sugar is used, 1 bushel will produce 6 gallons. After a place is chosen, the equipment is brought in and the mash process begins, taking about 10 days to ferment the corn into beer. When the beer is ready, the still or furnace is sealed with a rye flour paste and the slop arm is closed with a plug stick. Then the beer is placed inside the still and heated to a rolling boil, and 10 gallons of beer is placed in the thump keg. The cap of the still is sealed. The tapering cap arm conveys steam from the cooker or still to the thumping keg, then finally to the copper worm in a barrel of constantly circulating cool water. As the alcohol vapor passes through the cool copper worm, it condenses and turns back into a liquid which flows out of the coiled worm's end. A jug of liquid called singlings or backings is the product of the first run of beer, which is then put into the thumping keg after removing the spent beer. The backings are a murky liquid full of excess water, fusel oils, and other poisonous oils which tempers the second run. The second run purifies the liquid, making it crystal clear, and it doubles the proof of the alcohol. The second run is strained through hickory charcoal to remove the fusel oil or barley grease. This same process is repeated until all the beer is processed or run. The final run's proof is about 200 and must be cut to desired proof by adding water. And here you see the kegs where the mash is fermented. Then you see the cap and the furnace. And there is the slop arm. It goes through this little thing right here, this little pipe, into the thumping keg. And then finally brought over here into the worm. And let's look down into the worm, and you can see the copper pipe run all the way down through there, along with a little spider. And there's no information on this side. And this is a log cabin that is a replica of the ones that were built in this area by the early settlers. Tomahawk and Bow, 1784 to 85, from Thomas Pennett's Arctic Zoology, Volume 1, Smithsonian Libraries. Daniel Boone with his long rifle. Human face Gorchik, Eli Mound, Lee County, Virginia, circa 1300. Bureau of Ethnology, Smithsonian Institution, 1881. Moonshining, Kentucky Revenue Man, Project Gutenberg. Moonshine Still, 1936, by Tennessee Valley Authority. For over 10,000 years, Native Americans used the breaks for seasonal foraging and hunting, with more permanent settlements near the Ohio River to the north, and the New and Tennessee Rivers to the east and south. At the time of the settlement by the Americans of European and African descent, known Indian paths passed south up Russell Fork via Skeg Gap on Pine Mountain and via Grassy Creek and Hunts Creek, roughly the same as present Route 80. At the time, no tribe claimed the area and all used it, with the Shawnee dominant to the north and the Cherokee to the south. In 1750, Dr. Thomas Walker crossed and named Louisa, now La Vista Fork, to the north. Soon after, Christopher Gist crossed Pine Mountain at Pound Gap to the west. But the first visitation was by Daniel Boone and party in 1767 on a long hunt, wintering near present Prestonsburg, Kentucky. Long hunters continued to visit this area, but the first permanent settler in Russell Fork Basin was Fighting Dick Colley at Sand Lick in 1810. Other settlers followed, living, not unlike the Native Americans, by hunting, gathering, and subsistence farming. The latter was based primarily on corn, used as coin and for barter, not only for food, but also converted to the easy, transportable, and desired corn whiskey. In other words, moonshine. The log cabin you see here, typical of the time period, was originally built in 1838 by a Count's family just upriver in nearby Lick Creek. Local popular logs were sawn, drawn by a team of workhorses to its original site, and then hand-sewn. Historically, this home would have had an upstairs sleeping loft and accommodated a family of 8 or more. In the late 1700s, small homesteads like this one sprung up along the frontier as the American Revolution ended. The Cherokee and the Shawnee tribes retreated to their homelands, leaving their historic hunting lands to the oncoming waves of family settlers from the east, eager to make new lives in the Appalachian Mountains. This kudzu cabin was moved in 1976 and serves to educate visitors about the way of life of the area's first settlers. And you can see here where they are cutting some logs. And this is also locked, but sometimes during the year they do open it up for people to go inside. But we'll see if we can't peep into a window. But you can see down here the amphitheater. This is where they have plays and meetings, and they have concerts and everything down there. Oh, the back door is open. Let's look inside. You can see the loft upstairs where they used to have their bedding and everything. And this is the space of the cabin. And let's see if we can move this door back a little bit. Nope, that's not going to move. But back over there is the chimney. My arms are not long enough, unfortunately, but back there is the chimney that they used to keep the cabin warm. I'm going to come along this side. You can better see the chimney. And they've been clearing out a lot of this right here for other things, it looks like. What? You can see this is a very nice cabin, very well kept to be as old as it is.
This cabin is made out of hewn logs. There are several ways to do this. They do it with a saw, or they do it with hatchets. And this one's actually made correctly. You see the, well, some of them are. These joints, see this? That's so the water gets in there, it'll run off, and it won't cause it to rot. But then this one's flat, and that really don't make any sense. Well, got an angle here, so that's okay. That's what happens when the water doesn't get out. You get rot like that. Got a little bit of rot here. You got a little bit more here. You got the angle right there, but I think what happened is here, you know, it's not right and it causes rot. But, you know, my grandpa used to talk about this kind of thing. And grandpa had hewn logs. There's a chimney made out of creek stone. And that's got concrete in it, so of course, you know, it was made a lot later. But then again, it may have been shored up at that. The interesting thing is there was holes in the front door, and you can see light through it, so there may not be anything on the back here. And you see they got block. Right there is an excess log. They got block with a layer of rock over the front of it to make it look like a rock pile holding the cabin up. That may be what this chimney is as well. But the logs are old and they are hewn correctly. Of course, you got a bunch of people that idiots and carve their name into stuff. Yeah, the back door is missing. That's what it is. I will use my camera and see if I can get some better pictures of this.
Salt kettle. This cast iron kettle unearthed in 1961 at Saltville, Virginia, was one of those used for evaporating water from brine in the manufacture of salt. It was probably cast at Marion, Virginia about 1860 and was buried to conceal it from the Federal troops who captured Saltville in 1864. Presented to the Breaks Interstate Park by Olin Matheson Chemical Corporation, 1961. And they used to take the brine water and boil it down to get salt. You can see they used to build like a fire underneath there to melt, to evaporate the water.
Here's another display. I think what they're doing here is they've actually set up a little thing to show how these logs were hewn. See, somebody's vandalized it, but you see this side of this log has been flattened. And more than likely this was something they've set up here to show how that was done in order to make those logs that's in that cabin right there. See those flat logs? It's the same thing. Basically they take a saw and they saw through that. You can see the cross marks. You can see the cross marks from the saw all the way down. and depending on the log, they could actually make 4 or 5 of the boards in that house, because those are about 3 to 4 inches thick. The ones at my grandfather's house, which was originally a log cabin, those things were 14 to 15 inches thick. Basically, they just took a tree and flattened 2 sides of it, and that was what they did. It was 14 inches thick.
We wish to thank everyone for watching our series on the Breaks of the Mountains Interstate Park. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notifications. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries of Appalachian history.